Hey, says I'm live. Look, in Georgia, we are just about into the first month of winter, and I already can't take it. It's cold. And I know it's just in the 30s, and that ain't really cold. It definitely ain't New York cold in the 30s, but I'm just a summer baby. I like warmth and heat. And I'm ready for spring and warmer days. The good thing about living in Georgia, as opposed to New York, you get 9 months of cold and 3 months of heat. And so you flip that for Georgia. You get 9 months of hot weather and 3 months of cold. The 3 months of cold can't never go by quick enough for me. Ever. So, um, I've been paying attention to the Idaho Four. Those are four college individuals, the three young ladies and a young man who were brutally murdered on November 13th. And they recently caught the guy who they say is responsible for it. His name, of course, is Bryan Kohberger. And I've just been watching all that I could about this tragedy and listening about, all the evidence and the behavior of Brian, how he was captured, what DNA they have, where they found it, or where they extracted the DNA from, all of this stuff. And I have come to a conclusion thus far that might change, but probably not much. So far, it seems to me, and I think I'm fairly accurate at this point in time in my assessment, that Bryan Kohberger seems to be an eclectic type of serial killer. Now, you really can't call him a serial killer at this point. Although what he did, it looks like a serial killer, is bloody like a serial killer, it's egregious like a serial killer, must be a serial killer. I think so far that this was his first murderous crime. And it definitely is giving me BTK. And he's also familiar to me with other serial killers, and I'll go into that. But first and foremost, BTK. It just seems like he committed a crime just like BTK. He did just like BTK. Seems like he was stalking these individuals, or maybe one individual out of the group. Not sure about that. It has a very strong BTK feel. Bond, torture, kill, Dennis Rader, BTK, out of Wichita, Kansas, in case you don't know. So that's one thing. The other thing is kind of similar to Ted Bundy as well, just in the manner of killing college kids in a dorm house or whatever you want to call it. In this case, it was an apartment. But he also kind of looks like Ted Bundy to me. They kind of favor just a little something, something, not much. I wouldn't say they're from the same tribe, but kind of looks familiar to me. And then he has a lot in common with the Golden Gate Killer, who was caught in recent years for murders that were done, a couple of decades ago. And then I think he recently died in prison, lucky bastard. He only did a few years in jail. I think he had COVID. I can't remember his name. But the similarity between he and Bryan Kohberger is that, the Golden Gate Killer was in law enforcement for many years. And Bryan Kohberger was in a law enforcement program. I think he got a bachelor's in law enforcement, whatever you want to call it. And at this point in time, when he was captured, he already got a master's and he was working on a PhD. And I think during his master's, he was doing like a research for a thesis paper. And he was writing criminals and murderers, I think, who were already in prison and asking questions. How did you feel before you murdered the person? How did you feel afterwards? And did you have a plan? All of this stuff. But so far to me, he seems to be an eclectic type of serial killer. And again, I can't really call him a serial killer because I think this was his first kill. Now, had he not been caught, this definitely would not have been his last. It would have been his first, but definitely not the last. He's just a serial killer that was caught early. And if we had the technology back when BTK was first active, somewhere in the early 70s, I think 1974, he killed a family of 4. And there was evidence that was left. I mean, yeah, his evidence, I don't even want to say, but let's just say he ejaculated and left his business at the scene of the crime. That's as far as I'll go. You want to know more details, do the research. And so if we had DNA resources and all of that stuff that we have today back then, I believe BTK's crime would have stopped right there at those 4, as it did for Bryan Kohberger. If Bryan Kohberger would have done these murders back in the 70s, they'd still be looking for him. But DNA is something else, and you got to thank God for it, And for sure, if he had not been caught, he certainly would have killed again. No doubt about it in my mind. I don't think it's a doubt in any true professional's mind, whether they're profilers or, high-ranking law enforcement detectives or psychologists, whoever. They still haven't found a motive. And shit, BTK didn't have a motive either, other than to feed his perverted psychopathic fantasies, Do people really need a motive to kill somebody? I don't think so. Sometimes people ain't got nothing better else to do and they just feel like killing somebody. So I guess that's the motive, because they felt like it. So this is going to be a very interesting case. And if I could take a moment to talk about internet folk, the armchair sleuths. One of the victims, if you don't know the story, in the house there's 6 people. I'm just running by it really quick. He murdered 4. They were on different floors of this townhouse. But long story short, one of the victims saw him. Now, why he didn't kill that victim? He probably was tired. He stabbed him to death. It takes a lot of energy to stab somebody, let alone 4 people. So by the time he saw her, he probably was pooped. And she freaked out. Now she saw him like 4 in the morning leaving. She runs in her room and shuts the door. Nobody calls the police until noon. Now everybody jumped on this eyewitness for not calling the police until noon. I don't know what the circumstances are for that. She probably was scared like shit. I mean, I'm sure when she saw him, he just stabbed 4 people to death. Surely he had blood all over him. Surely he was carrying the knife. So you see a stranger come through your house full of blood with, a COVID mask on, holding a bloody knife. Well, shit. She locked herself in the room. She probably stood still and didn't move for all those hours, frozen, scared to even scratch her ass, because she don't know if he really left. She don't know if he came back. She don't know if he looking for her. She probably was hiding. But everybody was like, well, I would have called the cops. You don't know what the fuck you would have done if you saw some bloody ass monster coming from the upstairs, dripping blood on a big ass hunting knife. You don't know what you would have done. And so they harassed this young lady. They doxed her. They're contacting friends on Facebook and friends of friends and family members. Listen, this internet is a beast. And these people need to have better things to do with their time and their life. I can't tell you what I would do if I was standing in her shoes and I heard some commotion or something, and I step outside my room and this stranger is walking by me all bloody with a dripping bloody knife. Other than shit in my pants, I can't tell you what I would do after that. I really can't. This is a real life Jason Freddy Krueger bullshit. At that moment, that was her life. It's one thing to see that shit on the big screen. Oh, Michael Myers, run! Jason's coming. Oh, she's so stupid. Why do the white girls, every time they running from the maniac, they always trip and fall? Every movie. That's in the movie. Try to live that shit in real life. Internet people, they fucking kill me. Oh my God. She's just as much as a victim as anybody else. And yes, at face value, you wonder, well, why did they wait until noon from 4 o'clock in the morning? Hey, maybe she didn't have her cell phone on her person. Maybe the cell phone was on the other side of the room or on the bed and she was too scared to move to go pick it up. She was scared. Too scared to move. She don't know where this guy is. And as she's hiding, she's just playing the image over and over in her head. This bloody motherfucker walking through the house with a dripping bloody knife. It's whatever, man. So that's one thing that's been happening. They say that Bryan Kohberger is an incel. What is an incel? An involuntary celibate. Those are the guys like Elliot Rodgers. Remember who Elliot Rodgers was? Don't you remember This tripped me out. I remember first thing I seen about Elliot Rogers, somebody just texted me this video. And this Elliot Rogers is sitting in the car in this video, sounding like a comic book villain. Ha 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 ha. I'm 22 years old and still a virgin, and it's all women's fault. And I will exact my revenge on you women. Ah ha 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 ha. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Why did you? They didn't send me no introductory information about what this clip was. So I just didn't know what to think. I was like, I just didn't know. And then it was hours later, Elliot Rogers went on a shooting spree out in California. He was an incel, an involuntary celibate. That's what an incel is. And I think he murdered like 9 people and then killed himself. He's 22 years old. His problem is that he couldn't get no women. Women weren't interested in him. And if you watch this video, you can see why. You laugh and sound like a comic book villain. Can't nobody rock with that. And there's a whole group of incels that all coagulate together on certain forums and even YouTube channels. I think a lot of them niggas in the black manosphere are incels. But anyway, that's beside the point. And they're just a whole group of men that have a hatred towards women because they are involuntarily celibate, meaning they want to screw, but they can't find anybody to screw because nobody wants to screw them because they're weird and mentally ill and probably sovereignly disgusting. And because of their issues, they want to blame it on all women. And you should hear the things. Well, look, I don't even have to give you an example. You want to hear the type of shit they say and talk about, go listen to the Black Manosphere crew. And so on certain forums, they preach about violence against women. They think all women are evil. And, you know, there they have found a home with like-minded, sick individuals. And that was Elliot Rogers. And he is praised in those forums. He is praised. He's like a martyr, you know. But he was a little prick. Go figure. If they want to put him on a pedestal and make them his God, their gods, you need to just draw his face as a prick. I think that would be befitting. But that's just me. So, I said all that about Elliot Rogers and the incel because that, of course, is what they are deeming Bryan Kohberger to be. They have found him participating in chat forums and message boards from way back when, like 2010, 2011. And a lot of stuff he wrote about was, should have been alarming at the time, but it wasn't. And, you know, clearly he had issues. Serious issues. Issues that came into fruition on November 13th, 2022. Anyway, thus far at this particular point in time, this is my take on Bryan Kohberger. He was a serial killer in the making. I wholeheartedly believe that if it were not for the advancement of DNA, he would not have been caught and he would have murdered again and again and again and again. The only reason why he legitimately does not earn the title of serial killer is because he was caught really early. That's it. That's all. So with that being said, I'm going to end this video, and I shall keep you updated if I hear anything more worth doing a video about. But oh, I must commend the police department out there in Idaho. They did a better job than what the police did during BTK's reigning years in Wichita, Kansas. They were like the Wichita, Kansas police dealing with BTK. They were like the Keystone Cops, not the police department in Moscow, Idaho. They kept their cards very close to their chest, even though they were being criticized and had very disparaging things said about them as a police department as a whole. They did not waver. They knew the information that they had, the leads that they had. They followed it, and they so far did the right thing in apprehending Bryan Kohberger. And was there one more thing I want to shout out really quickly? That's just about it. Oh yeah, we don't have any details of like who was murdered first. We do have some details that he had been stalking, whether it was all four or one of them. He's been around their place at least 12 times over the past several months. Um, we don't know how brutally they were stabbed, but I think one stab is brutal enough, actually. But, I just have questions like, was one person stabbed more than the others, like in a more brutal fashion? Was he just after one of the girls and the others were just collateral damage? We don't know yet, and that's due to the police keeping this case very close to their vest. But there are an innumerable amount of questions, and we'll just have to wait and see. So stay tuned, and thank you for tuning in. Please hit the like button on your way out. I'd greatly appreciate it. Peace.